if you can move forward to fill in all the cushions in the front, that would be very supportive. Thank you, my dear. And you can also pull the chairs a little closer. Okay, just bring the chairs closer. Did you have a good lazy day? Were you lazy enough? So who felt that you were lazy enough? Raise your hands, please. Yeah, lazy enough? Who found that it was hard to be lazy? Yeah, it's hard to be lazy. There's such a stigma to laziness, right? And many people advised our teacher to call it like a rest day. Don't call it a lazy day. It sounds bad. But our teacher, Zen Master Thích Nhất Hạnh, he insisted on calling it a lazy day. So as monks and nuns in our Plum Village monasteries, we have Mondays as our lazy days. Isn't that wonderful? Because when people think of Monday, right, we fear Mondays. And yet the monastics call it a lazy day. Isn't that wonderful? So that's a revolution and also, resistance and rebel with a cause. So, okay, let us enjoy 3 sounds of the bell together. Thank you for showing up. I'm very happy to see all of you here. Dear beloved Thầy, teacher, my dear ones, again, I'm very happy that you show up for tonight's sharing. I want it to be like a heart-to-heart sharing. So I will share with you a very important practice in our tradition, but also to me, it's a very dear practice to me. It's called beginning anew. And in many ways, it's a continuation of the 6 mantras. They are 2, but they are 1. They are in each other. Okay? They inter-are. I think that word was mentioned before. Have you seen the yin-yang bean before? Yeah? It's like, it's an actual bean. You can order online, you can grow them, you can eat them, and it has this oblong shape. And has 2 halves. Half is black and half is white. And on the white, there's a black dot. And on the black side, there's a white dot. It's called a yin-yang bean. And I call it an inter-bean. So remember, okay, an inter-bean, because in the black, there's the white. In the white, there's the black. In this, there is that, right? So in the beginning anew, there are the 6 mantras. And in the 6 mantras, there's the beginning anew practice. And in all of our practices, they are together. They are in each other. Okay? So that's inter-being. So to start that, I also want to share a teaching by the Buddha, a discourse called The 4 Kinds of People. So at the time of the Buddha, there was no written language. So in order for the monks and the nuns and the lay people to learn the Buddha's teachings, they had to memorize them. So they would come up with systems, numbering system, so that they could remember. So you've heard about the 6 mantras. That's our teacher, he invented that. But I heard you learned about the 4 Noble Truths yesterday, didn't you? Yeah? The Eightfold Noble Path, for example. So, the 4 kinds of people, the Buddha said. The first kind of people they are those who don't care about the well-being of themselves or others. Okay? You just don't care. Like that. The second kind of people are those who care about the well-being of others, who work for the well-being of others. But actually, they don't care about their own well-being. They don't take care of themselves. And the third kind of people are those who care for their own well-being, but not the well-being of others. And the Buddha said the third kind is actually more preferable. That sounds interesting, huh? It doesn't sound very Buddhist. You would think the Buddha say, no, you have to be out there and save the world, right? But no, it's an actual teaching, the third kind of people, that you care about your own well-being. And we'll learn why. And of course, the fourth kind of people are those who care about the well-being, of their own and also of others. And if we think about it, in the world, there are a lot of people who care about the well-being of others, who are activists, yeah? Peace activists, environmentalists, yeah? Human rights activists, right? So we have people who fight for all the different causes. But I have met peace activists who are very angry, who are very bitter. This one particular woman I met quite a few years ago, she was so angry with the government, her government, the United States government, that she actually lived abroad for more than 20 years. She was bitter and angry. So she's the second kind of people. And when we work for the well-being of others, like health professionals, for example, I was trained as a doctor before I became a nun. I certainly care about the well-being of my patients. But I didn't take good care of myself. I didn't eat regularly. Sometimes I would be on call and I would be eating at 1 o'clock in the morning. We would eat, as doctors and nurses, we eat whenever we have a moment. So it's very irregular. I didn't sleep regularly, very erratic schedule for everything. And the body was tired, the mind was dull, I was working on adrenaline. And there were times when I would ask a patient a question, and then as the person is answering the question, I'm already thinking about the next patient. And there was one time I actually asked a patient the same question 5 times. And then, bless her, she said, "Doctor, you asked me that question 5 times already." And I felt that was a wake-up call for me. Because, patients come to you very vulnerable and very trusting. They entrust themselves in you. And you're not really present. You're not really stable. And so right there is you bridge, like the trust is already impaired. Right? And it happens to, we do that to patients, we do that to partners, to our children, right? To our loved ones, to people that we make a commitment to serve. So you see why the Buddha would say the second kind of people is not really preferred. But the third kind of people in the practice, I've learned, if I know how to care for myself, how to reconcile, to begin anew with myself, with my life, I free up all of that energy of angst, sadness, and anger, and confusion. And this well of love flows in me, without obstruction, this compassion that is cultivated. Then even if I don't try to care for people, I am caring for people. You see what I mean? Like you see somebody, you just smile. You just say something kind. You recognize something beautiful in a person. Or if you see somebody is in distress, you know this. Whereas when you are so preoccupied with your own anger and pain, even if your child, your loved one is crying, is in pain, you don't see it. You're so numb or oblivious to it, right? Or you don't have the space to embrace it. So that is why the third kind of people is preferred. And the practice of self-beginning anew helps us to be the third kind of people. And in the third kind of people, there's the fourth kind of people, right? Yeah? And so I'd like to share with you the practice of self-beginning anew. Often is presented as the practice of, you do it with others. You begin anew with others. But really, in my own monastic life, I've discovered you cannot really begin anew with others if you don't begin anew with yourself. And many times, actually, when I begin anew with myself, I don't feel the need to begin anew with others. Each one of us, we need to go through a process. If I work it through in myself, if I release it, then I don't hold that person responsible for my own pain or sadness. I take care of it. Then I let go of that person. That person has their work to do, you see? But at least I lift the burden from that person, so that person doesn't have to be responsible for my own pain or suffering. Right? And so it's a great kindness. And if the person wants to begin anew, it's great. If not, it's fine with me. Okay? So the practice of beginning anew has 4 steps. Okay? The first one, we call it watering the flowers. As I was walking to the meditation hall, I looked up, I saw a new moon. Just like when you close your eyes, it formed this, crescent, very thin. It's the new moon because it comes up very early in the day, right? Yeah? And as I looked up, I saw the new moon. Then I also saw the tree and the flowers bloom. And these like finger-like petals, the whole tree had so many flowers. And it made me very happy. And I just asked permission to take a few flowers and walk with me. I walk like this with the flowers in front of me. So this practice of watering the flowers in us is very important. Our teacher usually says that we are flowers in the garden of humanity. But many of us, we don't know how to water the flowers in us, and that's why we look so wilted, right? So wilted, so worn out, so much in distress. We age before our time, right? So all like that. So it's so important to see the flowers all around us. And literally, the flowers are blooming everywhere. And also to see the flowers inside us, to say thank you. That's how I think of it, okay? To say thank you to what's already there. We often wish for this or that to happen, and because it didn't happen, we feel sad. More often we feel sad because certain things happened, certain unfortunate things happened to us, and we are sad. So in this practice of beginning anew, we give thanks to the good things that happen to us, which are numerous, right? Like you look at yourself in the mirror, can you say, hello, eyes? Thank you for helping me see. See my friends, my loved ones, see beauties all around me. Thank you, right? Even if it's almond shape or slanted shape, like, us Asian brothers and sisters with slanted shape, or one eye bigger than the other, it doesn't really matter, right? Our eyes can see, and that's why we treasure it. See, we judge too much. Oh, my eyes are not blue or not this and that. But hey, they can see. And if we can just see that in ourselves, not too short, not too tall, not too fat, not too thin, it doesn't matter. This body is so precious. And this color, just beautiful as it is. That's what I've learned to do, to give thanks to what I have and not what I wish I could have. And it's so nourishing when we can do that. So stop self-criticizing and start giving thanks. Does that sound good? Yeah? So every time when you hear yourself thinking something negative about yourself, about your body, just say, stop criticizing, please. Start watering the flowers in me. That very same thing, you can give thanks. I have only one niece. I have only one brother who has one daughter. And when she was born, her nose didn't have a nose bridge. Just like this big bump here. And Asian people, we have this complex, when you don't have this like tall nose, like aquiline nose or something, tall Roman nose, you're like, I wish I could have a taller nose, that kind of things. My nose is actually quite tall. So we used to tease my niece, about her nose, and her grandma would try to pull it up like this, to make her nose taller. And when she was 5, I asked her, what do you like most about your body? And she said, my nose. And I was so proud of her. I was so touched and so proud of her. She knew everybody was very conscious about her nose, and yet she said, my nose. And then at the age of 6, she was diagnosed with quite severe myopia and astigmatism. Young children nowadays use electronic devices so early, and so the rate of myopia and astigmatism has increased, and it's very dangerous because it, predisposes you to blindness, all sorts of problems. So she was diagnosed with that, and it was very sad. And then one day I asked her, a few years later, and I said, so what do you like about your body? What do you like most? She said, my eyes. And I really appreciate that. I noticed, wow, she knows, she likes the things, her nose. She likes her eyes, instead of being self-conscious and even hateful towards those parts of her body. She chooses to like them, appreciate them. And I think that's such wisdom. I've also learned to be thankful for certain things. Like one day, I thought, thank you, Mother, for not aborting me. I never thought that. But my mother gave birth to me during the Vietnam War. She didn't have a husband. She worked for American GIs. And so my brother and I are mixed, half Vietnamese, half Amerasians. And we weren't very wanted in Vietnam, Amerasian children. So she knew to give birth to me and then to my brother, it would be very difficult for her and for us, and yet she kept us. So one day I sat and it just came to me, thank you, Mother, for keeping me and not aborting me. So we can give thanks for those kind of things that we might have taken for granted. Yeah? We get caught in the things that it's like again and again it replayed in itself the misfortunes, and yet we can also appreciate the misfortunes as well, because they can help us to find the path, right, out of suffering. Can train us to be more compassionate instead of hateful and revengeful. You see? So that's the first step. Thank you. The second step is to express regrets. In other words, we say, I'm sorry. We learn to say, I'm sorry to ourselves. Too often, we see ourselves as victims. Somebody did this, somebody said that, and it hurt us, and we want those people to apologize to us. But even if a misfortune took place at one time in our life, that person is now dead, gone, moved away. And yet we continue to rehearse those words, those actions, those thoughts. So a victim has become a perpetrator. You learned about the Four Noble Truths yesterday, right? The first noble truth is that there is suffering. There's trauma. Trauma is another word, a modern word for suffering, ill-being that the Buddha used 2,600 years ago. There is trauma. And the second noble truth is that there are causes to the trauma. Yes, there's that original cause. But you know what? How is that the trauma has come to be what it is? It has become PTSD. How? What food has been fed to this trauma that it is? With time, it has not ameliorated. It has worsened over time. The Buddha said, nothing can survive without food. And you know, an emotion hormone has a half-life of 69 seconds. So after 69 seconds, that amount of emotion hormone is halved. So it shouldn't have an effect on our body anymore. And yet we can be angry for hours, days, years, for a whole lifetime. We can be depressed and angry, right? Or anxious. What has fed that emotion so that it has prolonged all this time? What do you think has fed it? Can you? Okay, Mackenzie? You, with what? What kind of food? Like what? Feed anger with more anger. Feed anxiety with more anxiety. Thoughts. Our thoughts are food, right? We feed with our thoughts, narratives, right? With all of that. You know, it happened. I asked somebody to bring something for me from France to here, and she couldn't do it. But then 2 years later, she emailed me and said, you know, when you asked me to bring this, I was very anxious because I was going to travel to all these countries. How could I bring that box for you and everything? And so I apologized to her. I said, you know, we usually ask people to bring things from Vietnam, from France. But I said, you know, there's also this story about a monk. 2 monks traveling, and they were crossing a stream that have like strong rapids. And they saw a woman who couldn't pass the stream. So this woman asked for help, and one monk agreed to carry her on his back. And then when they crossed the stream, he dropped her off. They continue. But the second monk, after a long while, he said, you know, you shouldn't have carried that woman with you. It was against our precept. And he was very upset and judgmental. So the first monk said, brother, I dropped that woman off a long time ago. Why are you still carrying her? Yeah. So anyway, when I got this email from this person, I thought, man, she didn't bring the box. Somebody else eventually brought the box to Deer Park, but she's still carrying it in her mind. In her mind, she dragged the box to all these different countries. It's amazing. So you see how we do it? We drag it on and on. And we hurt ourselves. We hurt our back. Such a burden, right? So when we practice expressing regrets, we learn to see, am I carrying this like imaginary box? You know, am I carrying this burden all this time? You know, or in the case of the monk, am I still carrying this woman on my back? You know, or this man or this person? Am I carrying this pain this whole time? And we learn to say, I'm sorry to ourselves. I'm sorry I have fed my own suffering. That's my first enlightenment when I came to the practice in a retreat similar to this. I said, oh my gosh, I have become a perpetrator. The second cause, the second noble truth, I have become a perpetrator to my suffering. And I learned to say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And every time I had a negative thought, self-sabotaging, self-harming thoughts, anything that is critical towards myself, I would just hug myself. Can you practice with me, my dear? Just put your hands around. Just wrap around yourself or hold your own hands. And just breathe and say, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry I've said these things all these years to myself. I'm so sorry I thought these negative thoughts towards myself. So unkind, so violent. I'm so sorry. Let us practice beginning anew with ourselves with the sound of the bell. Okay? So you can practice this anytime and anywhere. In public and private, you can just quietly come back to yourself and thank yourself. Hello, my dear, I know you are there. And I'm so grateful. Thank you for keep trying. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being you just the way you are. Yeah. Thank you. The sadness and pain. Sadness and pain has been our friend for a long time. Yeah. So we can also see that as our own child. Okay, I hear you. In sitting meditation, that's what we do. Learn to listen and speak lovingly, deep listening and loving speech to ourselves, to give thanks to what happened, what didn't happen. Yeah? And to say I'm sorry to ourselves, to our body, to our inner child. I went back to my journals that I wrote in medical school, and I actually named it. I see in me there's a wounded child. I didn't learn about it until I came to my monastic life. But actually, as a lay person, I already named my wounded child. So there's that wisdom innate in us. It's already there. We should need to listen. When I was doing my internship, I just wanted to practice silence for a while and to walk very quietly, slowly. And when I told my best friend, she laughed. She said, if you practice silence, who's going to take care of your patients? And then I would walk upstairs very slowly instead of taking the elevator. And sometimes, the nurses or the doctors, they ran up and down the stairs and they would be scared when they suddenly saw me walking so quietly, But when I came to the practice, I discovered that's noble silence. And that's walking meditation. So you see, deep inside you, you really know what you want. You really know what's important. You really do. We are so preoccupied. We surround ourselves with noise to distract ourselves. And that is why we cannot hear the voice of our inner child, the deep aspirations, the wisdom that is already there. But if we just quiet down and just come back to this, even throughout the day, as you're driving, as you're sitting in the car, in a waiting room, don't wait. Just come back and practice just these 2 steps. It's amazing how you really connect with yourself. And the fear of facing yourself, the fear of the inner demon, all those names we name, you actually discover, wow, it's not that frightening. It's not that scary to face yourself. Actually, you discover yourself is quite amazing, my dear. The fear itself is the worst. So, the third part of beginning anew is to express hurt. Express hurt. What do you say? It hurts. Now, in our society, we value the intellect a lot. When we talk about the brain, wow, it's everything, right? You think of the brain as the leader, the boss, making all the executive functions, decisions, right? Leading everything. But actually, research has shown that 80% of the neurons go from the heart to the brain, sensory neurons. 80% of them go to the brain. Only 20% of the motor neurons go from the brain to the heart. Thus, they coined the term heart brain. So let's call this the head brain, but there is the heart brain. So the heart constantly sends signals to the brain, updating, right? Upgrading all the information, what's going on. Heart brain. The lungs, of course, they're also more than 80% of the sensory neurons going to the brain and 20% coming down. So you have lung brain. You have gut brain. They call that the gut brain, right? You feel this like butterfly feeling or ants crawling, right? You feel abdominal pain, bloatiness, indigestion, all that, right? You see, now the body sends messages to us all the time, and it's saying, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, please help. One of the mantras, I suffer, please help. Well, the body does that. If you feel a tightness in the chest, it's saying, I suffer, please help. So instead of taking some, painkiller, no, just sit still, put your hand on your chest, or wherever it hurts. And just breathe with it. I'm here for you. I know you're there. And I'm here for you. Thank you for letting me know that there's pain. I'm sorry I brought this upon myself, or I haven't taken good care of you. I'm so sorry. You practice that. You know, in leprosy or Hansen's disease, so this virus, this bacteria, it causes damage to the motor neurons as well as the sensory neurons. And that's why people with leprosy, they lose feelings in their hands. It's kind of like diabetes. The nerves are also damaged. So when you do like this, you know, you hit yourself somewhere, if you feel pain, you will not do it again. Or if there's a break, you know, in the skin, if it hurts, you will tend to it. But if it doesn't hurt, you will not avoid the source of injury. You see what I mean? Or if it doesn't hurt, you will not dress the wound. You will not take care. And that is why people with severe diabetes or with leprosy, they have damages in their toes, their hands, and eventually we have to amputate their fingers and even their arms or their legs because they don't feel pain. Therefore, they don't take good care of it. So actually, pain messages from our heart brain, lung brain, gut brain, skin brain, body brain. Those messages are actually very essential. They let us know, SOS, please take care of me. There's something going on. See? So if we were wise, if we were the third kind of people, we would take a moment to just stop everything and breathe and address that pain. And it's very amazing. Just like a child crying, if you just embrace the child, you know, I'm here, it's okay. What's going on, honey? What's going on? The child is soothed right away. Then you find out if there's a fever, there's a wet diaper, if there's hunger. You see, you address the situation, but you calm the baby right away, just with your attentiveness, with your empathy, with your concern, right? We all know that logically, and yet we don't do that for ourselves. So let us listen to the messages from our body. That is, you know, these messages are expressing hurt for our own sake. If we don't feel pain, you know that people who take antidepressants, we can become very numb. You don't feel anything. Don't feel. And it's kind of scary too. When you are in so much pain, you think, I wish I don't feel anything. But when you don't feel anything, it's also like a void, right? So pain, if you look at it in that way, in a positive way, this is what my body is telling me to care for it. Then you thank that pain. You hold that pain. You take good care of it. And then it's soothed. It shows you what you need to do. Okay? Let us breathe with the sound of the bell and just come back and listen to the messages from our body. Feel your heart. Hear the message. Listen to the message. Is it beating, regularly, slowly, at a regular rate, or is it too fast? You feel a tightness in your chest, or is an expansiveness, a comfort there, a warmth. Whatever it is, just recognize it. What color is it you feel in your chest right now? You listen to your lungs, how you're breathing, slow or fast, easy or laborious. You listen to your gut brain. How does it feel? Just check in, my dear. So stop self-criticizing, stop being so busy, stop distracting ourselves, stop running away, and just start listening. Start being present, right? Start being there. And it's incredibly comforting. No person can do this for us except ourselves. Nobody. Even if the person loves you so. I had a partner who loved me so. He was really spiritual, and he was really there for me. And it was great in the beginning. But then I went back to my own bad habits of just being drowned in my depression, feeding my depression with depressing thoughts, and I pushed them away. And so even if we wish to meet a perfect person, and even if that perfect person shows up at our door, even if that perfect person is a Buddha, you know what? You will walk away from that person. You will walk all over that person. If you don't know how to be there for yourself, you will hurt the person. And that also brings to the point, hurt. You've heard the phrase, hurt people, hurt people. Those people who hurt us, they could be our family members, could be people in our community, school, different places, workplace, etc. They hurt us most likely because they themselves were hurt. And now we are hurt. And most likely we hurt others. That's why the victim has become the perpetrator. And the perpetrator is the victim. You see? So to see this, that's interbeing. Yeah? That's intervene. In the victim, there's the perpetrator. And in the perpetrator, there is the victim. When we see that, it opens the way to healing. We don't see ourselves as separate, that person like that. But you see, the perpetrator is right inside of you, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in every cell of your body, in the way you feed your anger and anxiety and self-hate and self-sabotage. So you learn to hold that. There's no schism, no separation, but you can embrace it as a whole, and that's when healing can take place. Okay? Express hurt. And the fourth step is resolution. Okay? I mean, we can say, oh, I really want this, I really want to change. I promise you to yourselves or to others. But if you don't have concrete steps, then you end up doing the same thing again and again. And you start losing trust and faith in yourself. And that's what happens when we suffer. We just spiral downward. We use a negative coping mechanism such as checking out, escaping, or we keep running, or we keep, fighting. And the original cause is no longer there, and yet we continue to use these maladaptive coping mechanism, right? It becomes a habit, it has become a personality, and thus our own destiny. See? And we are so addicted to these habits, because that's all we know. The hormones, the stress hormones, have been secreted, released for so long, you're running on those hormones. We are physiologically addicted to stress, trauma, and suffering. And so that's why we're very resistant to change. You know there's a path, you know there's a way out, but you always will go back to the negative thinking. So we need to just smile to that and say, hello, I know you're there, you know. Okay, let's help me to transform, you know. Let's start living. Let's start healing. Let's start doing things a little differently. Let's start thinking it in a different way. You see, like you talk yourself through it. You bring light, the light of mindfulness into it. You know the word enlightenment? En means in, light, to bring light into something. Same old situation. You think of the same old way. How can you ever change it? You gotta bring light to it. Just a different angle. You look at it. Oh, interbeing. Yeah, I see interbeing in it, you know? And you smile. That's new light, new angle, and you change. It's very amazing. It's something very simple. But if you look at something, the same thing in a different way, it cannot affect you the same way anymore. So resolution, we learn to, to breathe. If there's something arises, instead of reacting habitually, right, automatically, then we come back. Just for a moment, just breathe, my dear. Just relax the body. Okay, just relax that thought. Are you sure? Are you sure that that's what the person meant? You know? Okay, just breathe for a moment. Not even think about it. So you break that chain. You break that pattern, of like going on this whole storm, being flocked away by that tsunami or by that storm. Just stay in the eye of the storm. Then when this big hurricane, this big storm, inside there's the eye of the hurricane, the eye of the storm. And it's actually quite peaceful and safe. And how do you enter the eye of the storm? With mindful breathing, with right view, right thinking of interbeing. You come in here and you will not be swept away by this storm. Okay? So we have resolution. All of our practices, mindful walking, slows down the mind. If the mind comes back to the body, the mind anchors in the body, then the mind is not free to write up this whole narrative, to go back to the dark spaces. You see? If you come back to the breath, if you listen to the messages of the body and out of compassion, you just breathe, or you lie down on your back or on your belly, or you just sit still for a little while. The storm will pass. And you strengthen your capacity to be in the eye of the storm. And that is deep healing. That is very deep transformation when you can change your own habit. Yeah? It's very important. When my sister Nghiêm shared about the 6 mantras, she started with, sharing, asking you, are you here to look for a partner? And everybody laughed nervously. And then, she said about there were some incidents that were unskillful, uncomfortable, most likely for some young women. Yeah? And I was very grateful that those young people spoke up. I am very grateful that you spoke up. And I'm very grateful that my sister in the organizing team told Sister Boying, and then Sister Boying share that to all of you. That is very empowering. Now, we usually think the perpetrators, those who perpetrate sexual violence, are some sorts of demons, very bad people, deranged, sick. But it's not so. They're just us. If we feed ourselves with pornography, if we rehearse the sexual trauma that we had experienced as children, as teens, those thoughts, those images and sounds are rehearsed in our mind. They create neural pathways, well-worn, well-traveled. Then sooner or later, thoughts will become speech and bodily actions. And thus the victims become the perpetrators of sexual violence. You see? So it could be any one of us here. And the pain is deep and forever lasting if we don't know how to practice. I was talking to somebody recently, and I share a story. I was sexually abused by my own uncle when I was 9 years old. And I didn't think about it consciously, but I would pull my hair and cause myself a bald spot. I would use a coin to rub because I kept having headaches, so I rubbed so hard, and the coin had this star shape, so it caused bleeding and then a scar. And if you look at me very closely, there are actually 2 scars, 2 dots right on my forehead, and it's more than 40 years have passed. These scars are still right here. And another symptom I had was urinary frequency. I would pee all the time. In college, in medical school, when I came down with low blood pressure, when I came down with Lyme disease, it just became worse. And so one night, as I was going to the restroom for the 7th time, and I was like waddling, I was leaning on a wall, I had been a nun for over 12, 13 years now, by then. And a thought came to me. If my uncle had known that I would suffer this much and this long, he wouldn't have done that to me. And that thought came in the mid of the night. I had never had that thought before. But it brought such softness and gentleness. Something about it was just so tender. If he had known I would suffer this long and this much, he wouldn't have done it. And it helped to free me. Just insights like that come in the mid of the day, the mid of the night, wherever you are, and it helps liberate you little by little. Especially if you invest in your spiritual life. Come back and breathe and be a soulmate to yourself. Who remembers, knows, take good care of. Master your feelings, your thoughts, That's a soulmate. That's a definition of a soulmate in Vietnamese. Tri kỷ. Tri means one who remember. No, takes care, masters. And kỷ means oneself. Mindfulness practice helps you to be a soulmate to yourself, to remember your breathing, what it means. When you are breathing, when you are angry, you breathe differently. When you're sad, you breathe differently, right? When you are sick, when you're dying, your breathing pattern changes. Mindful walking helps you to know because your steps sound differently, feel differently with different states of mind. You see? It helps you and it will give you insights like I had about my mother for not aborting me, about my uncle for not knowing out of ignorance, out of, negative watering in himself. He had watched things, he had seen things in the war, and he perpetrated on me. So you practice, my dear one, so that one day you don't find yourself a perpetrator and you cause pain to others, pain that you are not aware of, that people carry on for years, my whole life. My uncle would know, right? But I carry on. So we cause pain to ourselves and to each other unknowingly. But we are still responsible. And the pain of others, due to interbeing, that pain is in us, whether we are aware of it or not. We kill something in us, compassion, dignity, trust. When we trespass on others, we kill it for ourselves too, not just for the other persons. And that is why it's so important that we make time to sit quietly, to walk quietly, to listen to the message of the body, to take care of ourselves so that we stop being a victim. We stop being a perpetrator, and we can start being the person that we are very capable of, of that love, of that compassion, of that insight, deep understanding. Be a soulmate, okay? Whenever you sit quietly and listen to the message of your body, you are a soulmate to yourself. Whenever you talk yourself through something in a gentle, kind way, you are a soulmate to yourself. And thus you can be a soulmate to other people naturally. So we'll listen to a sound of the bell. And then I would like to invite some of you to come up here and you practice doing beginning anew with yourself, okay? You can practice the first 2 steps, or you can practice one of the steps, okay? Or all 4, however you feel comfortable and inspired to do. But it will be very healing with the energy of the community like this, be very healing, for those of us who share, but also for those of us who listen. And we will see each other, see ourselves in one another. So dear ones, we have 2 chairs. So maybe 2 of you can come up and sit. You can pull the chairs close to me. We can support each other. Yeah. Come, be courageous. Come, my dear. Hello, my precious body. I know you're there, and I'm so grateful. Help me to be there and embrace you just as you are, as your eyes the way you are, as your nose the way you look, your teeth, your mouth, your skin, your color, your gender, just as you are, my dear. Help me to accept you and love you just as you are. Just as I wish somebody else could do that for me, let me start doing that for myself. May I be a soulmate to my breathing, to my body, to my life, for all the things that have happened in my life. Others have done to me and I have done to myself and to others. I'm still here. Help me to practice so that I can be at peace with myself, at peace in myself. I am at peace in the world, at ease in my own body, in my own skin. I can be at ease in the world. Safe to myself, then I am safe to others, to the world. Come home. Come home, my dear ones. Come home to this breath, to this body, to this precious life that we have. This one rare and wild chance to be just who we are. Let us enjoy 3 sounds of the bell together. At this moment, we are our own soulmates, and we are a soulmate to each other. And this is a very precious, precious thing.